Hey, Mariners Church. It is great to see you this Saturday morning for another pastoral morning check-in. I hope you're doing well. I will admit to you, this week has been kind of a sort of a gut check going into the grocery store. Man, I shouldn't do that because seeing all the shelves empty, that just sort of hits me for some reason. Like, okay, it is, I don't know, it just hits me. Staying at home, not such a big deal. I love my house and I don't mind working from my home, but going out and seeing shelves empty just reminds me just how big of an impact this is. And then I have to remind myself, um, you know, these are temporary setbacks, things will get better, and more importantly, remind myself that God is bigger than coronavirus. You remember that hashtag that we were starting early on. And that is the point of what we're talking about this April, using our purpose of worship. And worship at its heart, at its key basic definition, is just making God big. Making God bigger than our circumstances, making God bigger than all of our personal hopes and dreams, making God bigger than our desires and sin nature. This week, you saw some of our staff talk about actually going through a devotional of how they meet with God each morning. You saw Kurt talk about the idea of confession and worship, and all wonderful things this week, talking about how we connect with God each week, which is an important part of our time of worship. Checking in with God and being reminded of how good He is. And I wanted to talk this week about some of the tools that I use and how you could use them. Kind of point you to some of these tools. I have physical Bibles on shelves, but I rarely use a physical Bible. I have my Bible with me wherever I go. And I may be sitting at a waiting room at the doctor's office, or I may be, in the lobby of a movie. And there are many times that I will just open it up and look at the verse of the day, or read a passage, or listen to a song. And of course, I also have my morning times. But I just wanted to help you realize, since most people have a smartphone with them, you can have access to these tools to connect with God at any moment. And so I just want to remind you of some of these tools. So one of the primary tools that I use is the Bible app. There are a lot of different Bible apps, but one of them is, if you could look at that logo there, it's from lifechurch.tv. It's the YouVersion Bible. And in it is virtually every version of the Bible, even in the red letter, in Jesus's words, and you can go to any passage and read through. But additionally, some of the tools that it has are reading plans. And you can choose and look for plans on whatever types of subjects that you want. And so perhaps you're realizing that you need to spend some time worshiping God, making Him big in the area of your life of needing more peace. Search the word peace, and these different devotional reading plans come up with often a small written word by some author or pastor, and then some passages of the Bible to read with it. Fear, or men issues, or women's issues, or parenting concerns, anxiety, sharing your faith with others. And so you can begin to look at different topics. There are also, through the Bible, reading plans for getting through the Bible in a certain period of time, portion of New Testament, portion of Old Testament, portion of Psalms or Proverbs. So this is a fantastic tool that I just want to highlight. Additionally, you can have it read the Bible for you with an audio voice. And if you're in your car, man, you can just connect that through your car speakers and have a passage of the Bible read to you as you're driving. Another tool frankly, is our church app. And I'm sorry to be the one just to push our church app all the time, but you know what? It really has some great resources in it. And one of them I want to take you to is when you open up the app, you go to the Weekend tab. And right there in the Weekend tab is the worship set list. Now, depending on when you look at it in the week, you may see last week's songs, or you may see the coming week's songs. But the 4 or 5 songs that the worship team is going to lead us in or has led us in are put here. They're not sung by our worship team. These are songs on Spotify or iTunes by the major artists that have prepared them. But nonetheless, if you don't know where to go looking for worship music, but you want to have some good worship music, this is a great place to start. And as you find some of the worship bands or individual leaders that are doing these, then you can begin to look at their albums and collections and go further. I'm an unstructured, emotional, artsy, creative guy, and I need music to be part of my checking in with God time. I need the music to pull something out of my emotional core, to touch me, how they make God big and remind you of his goodness and care and love and majesty. The act of worship, the act of checking in with God each day just sort of resets our brain. It reframes our emotions to put trust back on him, to realize that, you know that phrase, you can't see the forest through the trees. Well, you know what? Worshiping God clears the forest and the trees right out of the way, and you see God. You put him into your view. And that's the whole point of checking in with God every day. And so I just hope you'll use some of these tools. Our sermon notes, going back to our app, our sermon notes are in here. And after every message, there is a set of questions. And maybe you don't meet with a life group and use those. Your life group might be using something else. Or you're not in a life group, and I would sure encourage you to get in one. But you can do further study on the message and take what you heard over the weekend and plant it deeper into your heart. You know what? We forget what we hear pretty quick after we hear it. So to go back to it and reacquaint your mind with it is to insert it deeper into your heart. That's the whole point of reading the Bible daily, worshiping God daily. We're pretty forgetful creatures. We really are. And so the idea of remembrance and, forcing ourselves to be reminded of God's goodness is so important. And so I hope you'll do that. I encourage you, please connect with God, make him big in your life. He is a powerful God. And I think as I'm talking about this, and as I said that idea about God wiping out the forest and just being so big, reminds me of that old chorus, and maybe for some of you, you've never heard it and it's new, but I just would like to end with this. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face. And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Everything else goes dim when you make God big in your mind, your heart, your life. That's what worship is.